Hello, and welcome to our presentation, Price Projections, Price Histories, and Average Cost of Journals, the making of the Periodicals Price Survey. I'm Sean Romain, Director of Acquisitions and Rapid Cataloging Services for the University of Washington Libraries. Co-presenting with me today are Cindy Elliott, Collection Management Librarian at the University of Arizona Libraries, and Barbara Albee, Account Services Manager for EBSCO Information Services. Next slide. Today, we'll cover background and history of the survey, discuss what prices, titles, and indexes are used, explain the value and significance of the Periodicals Price Survey, take a look at some of the data and tables from the survey, and finally mention some of the factors and themes that play a role in the forecast. Next slide. The current iteration of the survey began in 1993 as a partnership between Library Journal and EBSCO Subscription Services, and grew out of a need for oversight of serials inflation rates. Annually, the Periodicals Price Survey has forecast the average increase in U.S. periodical subscription prices that will be charged to U.S. libraries for the upcoming year. The survey matches pricing data from EBSCO with large sets of periodical title lists from various indexes. Using the combined data, 10 tables are created that provide librarians with different views of pricing changes in the marketplace. Tables show average title price for scientific disciplines, costs per citations for LC subject disciplines, cost histories showing year-over-year changes in serials pricing by LC subject disciplines, and finally, cost projections for academic libraries, public libraries, and broad academic subjects. These tables, along with economic and industry trends, are then reviewed in order to generate the pricing predictions for the next renewal season. The article narrative aims to not only explain the tables, but also provide context for the changes in serials pricing over the year. Every year, the authors review articles, blog posts, news sources, and talk with industry professionals to get a sense of where pricing is going and what events in the market may be affecting pricing. Next slide. The survey originated more than 60 years ago when University of Illinois librarian Helen Welch, a member of the ALA Acquisition Section's Library Materials Price Index Committee, devised a method for sampling periodical prices in order to determine the overall average inflation rate for periodicals. The first iteration was considered a preliminary report because it looked at price increases for just 3 subject areas: political science, agriculture, and children's periodicals. By 1965, the index consisted of over 3,700 titles covering 24 subject areas. Prices were pulled manually from business records of the University of Illinois, publisher price lists, and subscription agent catalogs. For titles where pricing could not be confirmed from price lists or catalogs, a call was made to the publisher to confirm. You can imagine the work that was required to compile and calculate this information when automated spreadsheet programs like Excel were not yet available. Beginning in 1985, pricing was supplied by the Faxon Company, ending 25 years of manual price compilation. Interest in serials pricing increased in the early and mid-1990s as separate pricing studies were established by authors and groups covering Latin American periodicals, Canadian periodicals, and American legal periodicals. Starting in 1993, EBSCO began supplying pricing information. It was at this time that Lee Ketchum Van Orsdel from the University of Montevallo and Kathleen Bourne from EBSCO began working on a new version of the survey, using 5 years of historical pricing information from EBSCO. For the first time, the Periodicals Price Survey was now projecting inflation rates for the upcoming renewal year. In addition, the article changed focus from simply showing and explaining a set of tables to also providing some insight and context on why prices were increasing at the rate that they were. Ketchum and Bourne oversaw the annual survey from 1993 through 2009, with Steve Bosch from the University of Arizona and Kitty Henderson from EBSCO taking over as co-authors beginning in 2010. In recent years, Barbara Albee, myself, and Cindy Elliott have worked on the survey. Next slide. From 1993, when the authors began to provide context as well as data, each year's article was given a unique title and focus to further tell the story. From the past 30 years are shown on this slide. Over the past 15 years, the terrible twins of cereals inflation and library budget cuts have been recurring themes in the article. Next slide. So what are price indexes? Simply, they are a periodic measurement of price changes amongst a similar set of items to show market fluctuation. Consumer price indexes are a good example. The term price index is often used interchangeably with price survey, and both price indexes and price surveys usually have the same goal of measuring price changes over time. However, price indexes typically use a fixed set of titles year over year to compare changes in price. Price surveys, on the other hand, pull information from multiple sources to determine overall price changes in the marketplace. Next slide. For this survey, the periodical prices that are used are the standardized, publicly available pricing provided by publishers and vendors. Different sets of titles will produce different results. For example, replicating the survey using your own library set of titles might produce a slightly higher or lower overall inflation rate, depending on what prices you use, list versus discount, and the mix of subject areas at your own institution. The survey continues to prefer print pricing for consistency, because not all publishers make their online-only prices available, or because they do not have a standard online-only price. Pricing for print plus online, or online only, is used if print-only pricing is not offered. Print-only pricing is now available for only about 1/3 of the titles in the survey. Next slide. To create our title lists, indexes are selected to represent both different types of libraries, academic versus public, as well as show changes in pricing by subject or discipline. The survey uses a combination of title sets to provide different views or different slices of the impact inflation has on libraries. Titles contained in these indexes will change from year to year. We account for the changes in each index and make note of the changes in the article. We also use the most current title list available to us from these indexes. For consistency, the survey follows the guidelines of an ANSI/NISO standard, Z39.20, which gives the criteria for price indexes for print library materials. It describes how to prepare and compile price indexes to help measure the extent of price changes on a periodic basis for a variety of library materials. Newspapers and monographic series, for example, are excluded from the survey. Next slide. Library Journal wants a large data set. In order to provide different perspectives on pricing changes, we use titles from several different indexing services. EBSCO then pulls pricing for titles in these indexes. For a subject or discipline-based view, we use titles used in Clarivate indexes. Clarivate maintains citation databases covering thousands of academic journals, including a continuation of its longtime print-based indexing service, the Science, Social Sciences, and Arts and Humanities citation indexes. These indexes represent about 6,400 titles used in our datasets. Content from the 5 major publishers, Elsevier, Springer Nature, Wiley, Taylor and Francis, and Sage, continue to represent more than half, about 61%, of the titles in the merged Clarivate Analytics indexes. To provide an additional view, we also use Elsevier Scopus, which is an abstract and citation database, and is also our largest data set, representing about 20,000 price titles. From these title lists, we remove series, inactive titles, access-only titles, and titles with no pricing information. To compare the average serial price to the average cost per citation, we use Clarivate's journal citation reports. And then to provide a view of interest to academic libraries, we combine these title sets from the 3 Clarivate indexes with a set of titles from EBSCO's Academic Search Ultimate. To provide a perspective of interest to public libraries, we combine these data sets with EBSCO's Master File Complete instead of Academic Search Ultimate. Next slide. Let's talk about the ways the Periodical Price Survey can help serials acquisitions and collections librarians. Many librarians use the inflation projections to assist with budget planning or to help provide justification or context for additional or increased collections funding. It can also be used as a talking point with faculty or users to explain why libraries may need to initiate a serials cancellation project. Some libraries use a pricing survey as a tool to support the value of their collections. This survey often notes new and emerging pricing and sales models and discusses trends in the serials marketplace, particularly if they have or may have an impact on serials pricing. Next slide. The Library Journal Periodicals Price Survey is not the only price study available. Prices of U.S. and foreign published materials is compiled by members of Library Materials Price Index Editorial Board, a subgroup of the ALA Core Publications Committee. It appears annually in the Library and Book Trade Almanac, published by Information Today. It is a source of data broken down by U.S. and foreign published materials, as well as by material types. It includes a total of 14 indexes and tables. Vendors contributing pricing data to this compilation include EBSCO, Baker & Taylor, Gobi, Ingram, Oasis, as well as several legal serials vendors. EBSCO also publishes its own price projections report, which breaks out pricing projections for print and electronic single titles as well as packages. The report also notes the impact currency fluctuations may have on libraries. Together, these studies can provide acquisitions and collections librarians with a big picture of past and future serials pricing. I'm now going to turn this presentation over to Cindy, who's going to discuss some of the tables in the Periodicals Price Survey.
Thanks, Sean. Currently, we include 10 tables in the PPS survey. These tables are created by examining historical serials pricing information from EBSCO Information Service for serials titles indexed in Elsevier Scopus, Clarivate Analytics Citation Indexes, EBSCO Host Academic Search Ultimate, and EBSCO Host Master File Complete. Data for impact factor and other citation-based metrics is derived from Clarivate's journal citation reports. The tables have changed somewhat over the years, but always include cost histories by Library of Congress subject, comparisons of average costs, and cost projections from the various data source used. Next slide. Data is compiled from various vendor files, Elsevier, EBSCO, and Clarivate to create the tables. Here's some information from 2024 as example. Except for tables 2 and 3, the price survey uses a print-preferred pricing model based on the standard retailed price for all titles in the selected indexes. As Sean mentioned earlier, print pricing is used for consistency because not all publishers make their online-only pricing available, or because they do not have a standard online-only retail price. The index contains pricing for print plus online and online only if those are the only rates offered. Most titles now have an online component. Table 1 shows the average 2024 price for the top 15 scientific disciplines by using current year pricing information to determine the average price for a journal in a subject discipline, which is based on broad Library of Congress classes. Tables 2, 3, 4, and 7 are cost histories. Table 2 includes titles indexed in Elsevier Scopus and sorted by Library of Congress subject. Uses current and previous year pricing to show the year-over-year change in average price for journals in 8 broad Library of Congress subject areas. Table 3 examines historical pricing costs for online titles only, indexed in Clarivate Analytics Indexes defined by Library of Congress subject. Table 4 examines historical pricing information by Library of Congress subject area for serials titles indexed in EBSCO Host Academic Search Ultimate in order to predict price increases of interest to academic libraries. Table 5, 6, and 8 show cost projections for 2025. Table 5 predicts the average price increase for serial titles indexed in EBSCO Host Master File Complete, a multidisciplinary full-text database and index used by many public and school libraries. Table 6 predicts the average price increases for serial titles indexed in EBSCO Host Academic Search Ultimate, also multidisciplinary full-text database and index used by many academic libraries. Table 8 predicts the average price increase for serial titles indexed in the 3 discipline-based Clarivate Analytics Web of Science citation indexes. And Table 9 and 10 compare prices across 3 vendors for citations. Table 9 compares the serial prices from Elsevier, Clarivate, and EBSCO in broad price band groups and impact factor to come up with an average cost per citation. And Table 10 compares serial prices from the same vendors with rates of citations and percentage of OA gold. Next slide. If you haven't seen the periodical price survey tables, this is an example of a cost projection table. This is Table 5. It includes data from both foreign and domestic publishers. Table 5 predicts the average price increase for serial titles indexed in EBSCOhost Master File Complete. It is one of the first places school and public librarians look for the overall projected percentage of price increases for the coming year. This table displays the average cost per title changes for the previous 2 years and the current 2024 average cost per title. It shows the projected overall percentage increases expected for 2025, which are in the 6 to 7% range. Next slide. Here's an example of a cost history table. This is Table 2. Cost history for titles in Scopus by Library of Congress subject based on the titles included in Elsevier Scopus Index. The average number of titles in each category has dropped across all categories. From 2022 to 2024, the number of titles published has decreased by 592. The prices are lower in this sample as many of the large publishers use custom quotes for online pricing. Consequently, some high-priced journals are not included in this mix. The cost per title included in this sample has gone up 6% on average across all categories. Next slide. Of no surprise, science, technology, and health sciences titles remain consistently in the top highest priced titles. Table 1 provides the average price for scientific disciplines for that year. Since 1993 and prior to that, chemistry and physics have consistently ranked number 1 and number 2 in the list. However, this year, the next 2 disciplines have changed. Math and health sciences dropped out of the top 4 this year and were replaced by engineering and biology, closely followed by food science. Next slide. Here is a closer look at the data for average cost per scientific disciplines. This table shows the average price ranging from $2,000 a title to $77.50 per title. The average price in 2024 for a chemistry title was $7,754, and a physics title was $6,138. Pretty pricey titles. Next slide. Journal price data is important for budget management processes, but price alone is not the sole factor determining the value of journals. The survey continues to work with pricing data to explore the relationship between prices and metrics such as impact factor, eigenfactor, and article influence score. Libraries also consider local usage statistics, including Counter 5 data, as well as the relevance of the title to local curricula. These are important considerations in determining values as libraries actively manage their information resources. The survey continues to explore the relationship between price and value, and titles are divided into broad price categories. The selection of categories is based on median prices with standard deviations, and of those price bands remain in use for comparison. We're also seeing the impact of open access as the cost for the least expensive titles have decreased, while the impact factor increased as more journals move to OA. Next slide. One other area added to the survey is a look at pricing for publisher e-packages. For comparison purposes, the rate of price increase was analyzed for 8,000 e-journal packages handled by EBSCO Information Services. Packages are a large part of the periodicals marketplace and remain a common subscription model for publishers, so the rate of price increase for these resources is important data for libraries. Next slide. For 2023, the average rate of increase was 5.008% compared to 3.76% in 2022. A read and publish subset of 400 packages processed by EBSCO Information Services show a slightly lower price increase of 4.11%. The percentage suggests that the industry may be continuing to price these packages more favorably as an incentive to move libraries to a read and publish model. The prediction for 2025 is that the eJournal package rate will increase slightly up to 5.5% to 6%. While this is well over the average inflation rate, this late level of increase in the market has historically been tolerated by libraries in non-recession years. Now I will turn it over to Barbara to talk about trends.
Thank you, Cindy. The article is not just about the tables and the forecast. However, the forecast is very popular. It has some consistent topics we consider when writing the article, including U.S. economic factors, the library marketplace as a whole, what's new in the publishing industry, higher education, and trends for all of the above. We take a close look at some of the larger themes each year, such as open access. A dominant theme can emerge, and 2024 saw a combination of open access, DEI, and AI rising to the top of everyone's conversations and a key topic for presentations at conferences. There are some contributing factors in the market that we look at to understand why journal prices are rising. We use quantitative tools that provide information about current market conditions to help spot trends, and that can be used to predict the future, such as the Consumer Price Index and the Bureau of Economic Analysis. Many of the contributing factors remain the same year after year. Shifts and developments in the economy and the state of higher education and the subsequent effects those changes have on our library budgets are constant. These are contributing factors for which we find overwhelming evidence in the library literature. For many years, we have seen library budgets, for the most part, flattening or diminishing, leaving libraries to battle cost inflation and cancellations to keep up. There is usually one theme or issue that predominates or rises to the surface each year, and we try to run with it. The article. Open access or transformative agreements such as read and publish and subscribe to open, for example, were explored much more closely in recent years. We continue to look at the drivers in the marketplace. The list here is certainly things that we will consider, but we always look for the more critical issues each year. These are some things we see on the horizon, such as budget compression, open access mandates, and less print. One of our goals is to facilitate understanding of how and why libraries are changing and to better position the library to meet the needs and expectations of their institution and library users. Increases in journal pricing and inflation affect flat budgets, and budget reductions affect library priorities and their ability to afford needed resources. These are sometimes in relation to enrollments dropping or not recovering from the pandemic. Mergers and consolidations among publishers are not new and continue and often affect pricing. And we are beginning to look at the changes in pricing for open access titles as we find more transformative agreements and models entering the market. And as we do so, we will have more of that data in the future. Some additional drivers that can affect the library market include currency fluctuation. This is affected by commerce, economic growth, and inflation rates. New assessment and evaluation tools for libraries that can allow them to look at cost per use for their own collections. The shift away from print and its impact on pricing as a result. And consortia also play a big role. The power of consortia cannot be ignored in its bargaining strength, for example, in negotiations. We are already working on the 2025 forecast, so stay tuned. We traditionally meet in November to discuss all of the above and consider a theme. We will meet again in February to pull together the final article and make sure we have the updated pricing data to run our tables. Our forecast is based on the data and we never speculate. For further reading, you can refer to these resources. For an historical perspective, the U.S. Periodicals Price Index, or the U.S. PPI, which was published annually for a long time and was designed specifically to measure price changes in cereals distributed in the United States. The U.S. PPI was produced by the American Library Association's Core Publications Committee. And Sean also mentioned that committee also publishes the prices of U.S. and foreign published materials. And to reiterate, if you have not read the most recent article, the predicted inflation rates in 2024 were at about 5 to 6%. The reality is that cereals inflation is here to stay. You can find the article on LJ's website and a simple Google search for Periodicals Price Survey, or you may have the print copy on your shelves at your library. The title was Triple Advantage or Triple Threat. Where will OA, AI, and DEI take us next? Thank you, and we will take any questions and comments, and you can email any of us or all of us at the email addresses on the slide. Thank you, and stay tuned for the 2025 survey.